So let's start with the basic questions. Who are the referrers? There is a straightforward answer. People who use Revolut Business, people who have experienced the core value of the product, who love it, and who want to share it with friends. Okay, this is evident. Who are the invitees? Your target market. In this case, business owners. I almost forgot to mention the main value hypothesis, right? Every MVP has to have a main value hypothesis. The base of referrals is people loving your product and sharing it. And the hypothesis is that before you have referrals, you hypothesize that they'll need a product to share their love for the product with others. With referrals, you add incentives on top to make sure, and the hypothesis there, it's hard to define because it's an acquisition channel, right? But effectively, one of the ways you can interpret it is a hypothesis that users will find it engaging and beneficial for them to monetize their social capital, which it is basically, right? So you're monetizing your social network by offering them a certain referral to a product. So the next question is, what are the reward requirements? Those things that you have to implement to make sure that the users have a lifetime value that is good enough. In this case, we went for the 4 simple steps. So first, sign up with the referral link, no-brainer. Second, create an account and pass business verification. This is a bit more difficult than in the B2C banking. As you can appreciate, you have to submit your documents for the business, and the verification process can take anything from 2 hours, which is amazing. Shout out to team in Revolut Business. That's how quickly that is, up to a few business days if there are questions about that verification process. Then they'll have to send or receive a payment to actually get the core value, right? To get the bank account running. The third would be ordering a corporate card and then spending using the corporate card above a certain threshold. So for the UK, we have chosen 50 GBP. And the last question is, what is the timeline for the invitees? I have mentioned the timeline for the invitees a second ago when I was talking about referrals in retail banking. But to go a bit in depth there, why do we even have a timeline, right? If the lifetime value is above the customer acquisition cost, we're good. But you actually want to offer the highest possible reward and only pay for users that are retained and are there for a good reason. They're committed to using your product. In retail referrals, what you'll see is that a lot of retail users are just in there for the cash sometimes, right? Or there are users that are lagging behind and are only doing it because friends ask them to. So they start signing up, and then the friend is nagging them by WhatsApp, like, okay, have you done the transactions yet? Have you done the transactions yet? That kind of person will take forever to complete the steps, and they're actually not a good user for the company, right? They're only doing it because someone is pinging them. And in that sense, they will likely not make it to the target lifetime value. So we introduced a time cutoff after which we don't pay the rewards if they sign up too late. So imagine you're making a referral to a friend. Let's say I'm inviting Dima, who just presented, right? And he signs up 4 months later. Chances are he actually signed up when he needed a Revolut account, not when I recommended him. And that's, again, an indication that first, the referrer didn't have much to do with the sign up. They tried, but they failed the first time. And the second is that the user was lagging behind too long. So this case is different for Revolut Business because first, business process of signing up and actually getting the money and the invoice and everything, it takes much longer to complete that process, so we want to offer more time. In retail referrals, we offer a bit less than 3 weeks, and in referrals for business, we offered more than 60 days. But that's just for the MVP. I'll talk about what we want to improve in a second. So 60 days, first, gives ample time for businesses to complete the target actions, keeps the sense of urgency there, they actually have to do it, keeps the attribution accurate, but also cuts off the people that are lagging behind. But again, for business, we had to adapt it, and it brings us to our first best practice that we'll cover in a sec. So with the requirements ready, we have started designing, and let's go through the designs for the referrals for business. So you can see how the layout is somewhat resembling the previous screens I've shown. So earn £100 cash for each successful referral. And before December 1st, your referred businesses have to do the things I've mentioned, which is sign up, pass eligibility check, order a card, do some spend, receive the transfer, and only then will they get an account. For user tracking and for sharing, we have reused the screens we have used before. And we have basically saved a lot of dev time on this. It is also important to mention that the Revolut Business is a standalone app. So even though we can reuse all of those nice things, the product landscape is separate from the retail banking app. So we had no constraints in terms of communications or implementing different solutions here, which was not the case with crypto. So let's move on to the results. Okay, so the team that was building it was one designer, one backend developer, and one developer for iOS and Android, which are the mobile platforms. So this is the minimal team you can actually have to launch anything in a mobile app. That's a bare minimum. In Revolut, we pride ourselves in really autonomous and powerful engineers. So this was actually the whole team it took, including myself and the PO from business, to make this happen. And in terms of scope, we had to implement the new attribution logic in the new app. We had to implement the new business logic for counting the steps for business. It required some backend development to basically rewrite the steps, recognize the backend events, record them in a new database, so it required some setup, but it was still relatively straightforward, right? And the new screens, which are basically the reskin of the old screens with some magic added on top. So that was really straightforward, and it took us a total of 4 weeks of pure dev time to launch this. And this is a very realistic timeline because we had a chance to reuse so much of the stuff. And a total time to launch with the compliance approvals, the terms and conditions, the translations for many countries took a total of 6 weeks. We have launched the referrals for business not too long ago. So we have launched it in 30 countries, which are mainly European countries, and we have acquired more than 1,500 businesses over the course of just 3 weeks. So this launch in general was a success. First, because we acquired a bunch of users, which is amazing. And the second is because we were able to test our main value hypothesis. We wanted to test if business owners can refer and are willing to refer friends to their app. And we have successfully tested it, and we can now have customer feedback on what could be done better about the product. One of them is the 60-day deadline. When I mean the 60-day deadline, it's not a 60 days per user, it's actually a promotional period from date A to date B. You can imagine that it's somewhat limiting, right? If you sign up as a business in the beginning of that step, you have 60 days to complete it. But if you sign up a week before, you'll just have a week. So we had to do it for the MVP to ease the development process, but actually we want to change it to a stable timeline of 60 days or 30 days for each business to complete the steps. And that basically brings us to best practice number 1, which is reuse as much stuff as you can that you have developed within the company to make the development quicker, right? You have seen the resemblance of the 2 screens, and that is actually the way to do it if you have something to reuse in a corporate landscape. If you're facing tight deadlines, and you always are, you want to do as much stuff as you can in a year. So this is a must if you have anything to reuse. This applies to the back end and the front end, as well as some know-how if you have people who launched it before. But this is a great thing to make it quicker. And this brings us to the second best practice. Adapt whatever you use reusing, right? You cannot mindlessly copy stuff because the referrals use case just looks the same, and we can definitely make it work. And in terms of adaptation, I don't mean adapting the images and the backend to make it look good. I mean the changes I've been talking about the timeline or the use case. You have to really design it from scratch, but still reuse as much as you can, right? So no mindless copying there. And I think that's it for the case of Revolut Business. And